key groups. We call these guys the supporting roles, we call them Functionaries.
All right.
So they should all be similar.
Call this meeting of Central Florida Facilitators Club 9958 to order. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. For our guests, bathrooms down the hall to the left. Feel free to excuse yourself if necessary. Please silence your cell phones and any electronic devices. Courtesy and respect for everyone speaking this evening. At Toastmasters, we provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. Through this mission, each Toastmaster gains a clear understanding of the club's purpose and the organization as a whole benefits from a shared set of values. Please help me welcome our thought and pledge leader this evening, Susan Morgan.
Our thought for the evening is, beginnings are wonderful things. They're free, they're full of possibilities, and everyone gets a new one every day. What will you do with yours? I thought that was very apropos this evening with our icebreaker and another speaker who is not quite as experienced. So please, everyone rise and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now I get the pleasure of introducing our stand-in president tonight. That would be me. Vice President has been able to attend this evening. We are called the Facilitators for 3 reasons. First, we are sponsored by the Central Florida chapter of the American Society of Training and Development, the premier organization for professional facilitators. 2, a good facilitator needs to be a strong communicator and an effective leader, and Toastmasters is all about communication and leadership. And 3, to facilitate means to make things simple and easy, and we want to make things simple and easy for you tonight. We have a guest this evening, that's Barry. Barry, would you stand up and introduce yourself and let us know how you found us?
I recently graduated from UCF in May, my master's in engineering, and I currently work at an engineering firm in engineering. I was involved, kind of, sort of, at UCF and at Toastmasters. It was more of a personal endeavor. I just wanted to do my public speaking. So I kind of just Googled Toastmasters in Altamont Springs and found you guys.
All right. That's great.
Great.
Thank you. That's great. Our district, not district, excuse me, our division contest. We already had our area contest. And who won? Jonathan, did you win?
Well, I did win in a sense. I got 3rd place.
All right. What? Yes, in both. That's right. You got. Sorry for me not remembering.
I know it wasn't very memorable. Or
Oh yes. Okay, and our division contest, Jessica, when is that going to be showing up?
Our division contest is going to be on Sunday, October 9th at 2 o'clock. It's going to be at the Macon Public Library, not too far from here down the street. And I'll be looking for some functionaries, etc., to participate. But please come, because if you were at the area contest, it was really, really strong for Area 42. And if that's the strength of the areas, then division is really going to be phenomenal. So I think it'll be a great contest. So come on down, October 9th, Macon Public Library.
Yes. Our dues are due as well. well, so Jay is not here, but get in contact with Jay if you haven't paid your dues yet, because we need to do that. Yeah, I left my script. An intro at the table, sorry.
Also, the last structure.
Get that GD.
There it is.
Yes, I hope the Jamie gets this. Because I shouldn't leave the lectern unattended. Have you ever found yourself suddenly responsible and accountable for the life of another? Of course, every proud parent has been. Indeed, every Toastmaster officer voluntold to their office has been. How about the lives of hundreds or the livelihoods of millions? Does that thought terrify you or does it excite you? Tonight's Toastmaster has a strong sense of responsibility. That has served him well when the results have been favorable, but it has served him very poorly when the results have been detrimental. Nonetheless, he finds himself thrust into the position. He does his best to meet the promises he has made. Tonight, he promised to be Toastmaster, and with that mantle thrust upon him, he is here to teach us about those who have found far greater responsibilities thrust upon them, and how they rose up to meet their own greatness. Please help me welcome Advanced Toastmaster Gold, Stephen Morgan.
In my stars I am above thee, but be not afraid of greatness. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. Okay, quiz, who knows where it's from? Yay, okay, what?
William Shakespeare, Twelfth Night.
Twelfth Night, yes, Act 2, Scene 5. Malvolio was the one who said that one. Very well done. Now you have something to look up to. Ah, yes. With that particular quote has been used in many situations long since it was written down hundreds of years ago now. Ooh, that was good. In many cases throughout history, you probably have heard of such situations, and you probably wonder when it'll happen to you. As an example, you might think about your first day on your job. Any of the jobs you may have had. I mean, what's the worst thing that's ever happened on your first day on the job? Okay, has anyone gotten fired on their first day on the job? Okay, so it wasn't so bad. You obviously survived it. How about first day on the job for Ben Sliney? Anyone recognize the name? You should. His first day on the job at the FAA Command Center as Chief of Air Traffic Control Operations. September 11th, 2001. And on his first day on the job, he had to give the order to ground every plane in U.S. airspace. So you've never had it quite that bad, have you? And if you were ever worried about getting up here to speak, at least you weren't on the first day of the job with Ben. Our agenda has a few changes. The most notable change is there will be an additional speaker. We'll put Emma in as second speaker. And in addition, since we'll need a second evaluator, a third evaluator as it is, we'll put Sarah in for evaluating Emma's speech. She'll be giving project number 5, the vocal variety.
6.
Is it 6?
6.
Okay, vocal variety speech out of the Competent Communication Manual, entitled Funny Moments. We also are missing our president, as you've already noticed, so we don't have our educational moment that was scheduled, and Susan is stepping in the president's role, as she's supposed to as VP Education. With Emma speaking, she will not be timer. Roy is stepping into the timer role. Tony is not feeling well, so she will not be making it, and Susan will be doing double duty as odd counter and grammarian. And she actually was ready for this because she has a word of the day, which she will now explain to us as grammarian and as odd counter what she will be doing, since our guest will need a little bit of more education.
responsibilities. First is to provide the word of the day to my fellow Toastmasters and guests in order to expand our vocabulary. I have chosen the word of the day, which is sagacious. It's an adjective and it means caused by or indicating acute discernment. So it's right over here. If you, sagacious. Stumped me.
Can you repeat that?
Can you repeat the meaning again?
Caused by or indicating acute discernment.
If that's a word in and of itself.
Oh, you define discernment?
I don't understand, but. Well, then.
I'll ask them a question.
Okay, and then if you have an opportunity to speak, please do your best to use the word. I will keep track of those who use the word of the day. Those who do not will be fined 25 cents. Guests and members who haven't yet given their icebreaker speech will not be fined. I will also listen for colorful imagery and the use of exceptional vocabulary and grammar, and I will suggest improvements in grammar if needed. And as your odd counter this evening,
Before you go, can you use
Yes.
sagacious in a sentence as an adjective?
let's see. He was a very sagacious person.
That didn't
No.
help in context.
Yeah.
That was an adjective.
I'm gonna use
Okay,
that
come up with a
sentence too.
sentence for
She
me,
was
Stephen.
wrong.
Or
I
Jessica, you
might be
got
able to
one?
help you out. I looked up on dictionary.com. The thesaurus says an adjective is smart or judicious. So someone who is astute, canny, clear-sighted, clever. That helps a little bit. Sage, wise means wise, so sagacious, I think.
Okay.
Will help.
There you
All
go.
right, thank you, Jessica, for helping us out with that. So as our odd counter this evening, in order to improve the quality of our speech, the odd counter's job is to make us aware of disruptive audible crutches such as and you know, and double clutches, which is the repetition of a word while the speaker searches for their next thought. I will also note sentences strung together with bridge words such as and, so, or like, and I will give a report at the end of the meeting. Mr. Toastmaster.
As Richard just pointed out, and I had the opening listed here and forgot to get to it. The supervisor of elections has not arrived, so we do have that also open. Unless you were offering to do that too, but since it's general evaluator, you will be up here during one of the voting spaces, that won't work so well.
I could totally do supervisor of elections, because once I speak, I'm done.
Okay, Jonathan? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
As we continue on with the functionaries, Roy, as timer, please explain what you will be doing.
As your sagacious timer. I'm doing a lot, Stephen. One of the skills Toastmasters practices is expressing a thought within a specific time frame. As timer, I am responsible for monitoring time for each speaker in each meeting segment. I will operate the timing signal indicating to each speaker how long he or she has been speaking for. For our prepared speeches to qualify for voting, speakers must speak not less than 30 seconds under the range minimum and not more than 30 seconds over the range maximum. I will turn on the green light at range minimum, the yellow light at the mid-range point, and the red light at range maximum. For table topics to qualify, speakers must speak at least 1 minute, and no more than 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Green light, 1 minute, yellow light, 1.5 minutes, and the red light, 2 minutes. For evaluations to qualify, evaluators must speak at least 1 minute, 30 seconds, a maximum of 3 minutes, 30 seconds. Green light at 2 minutes, yellow light at 2.5 minutes, and the red light at 3 minutes. Mr. Toastmaster.
And stepping up to count our votes, Jonathan, please explain the supervisor of elections role.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, and person who is submitting to Tim Chastain. As vote counter, I will be picking up all of your ballots for best speaker, the best table topic speaker, the best evaluator, and the most improved speaker. I will tally the results for award presentations at the end of the meeting. I will also pick up any comments you might have written for the speaker or any meeting participant and deliver the comments to the appropriate person. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Another name you should know, Stanislav Petrov. Who knows it?
Oh, it's familiar.
Well, here is why you should. Back in May of 1981, the Soviet Union believed that the United States was gearing up for a preemptive strike. There were plans to deploy missiles into nuclear missiles into Western Europe. On September 1st, 1983, the Soviet Union shot down South Korean jet, Korean Airlines Flight 007. That had strayed over into their airspace, killing all 269 people, including a U.S. congressman, and many other Americans were also on board. Not even 4 weeks later, on September 26, Stanislav Petrov was a lieutenant colonel in the Soviet Air Defense Forces, and he was on duty in his bunker near Moscow. His responsibility was to observe the satellite network and notify his superiors of any impending nuclear attack. Shortly after midnight, the bunkers reported an intercontinental ballistic missile was heading towards the Soviet Union from the United States. Petrov sagaciously considered the detection a computer error. And then the computers identified 4 more missiles. He still considered the computer system suspect, even though he had no other source of information to work from. Later, he described his reasoning in that if there was a first strike coming from the United States, it would have likely been hundreds of ICBMs intended to disable any counterattack. So seeing only 5, he decided not to trigger the counterattack, which was their operating procedure. The false alarms, as it turned out, were caused by a rare alignment of sunlight on high-altitude clouds and the satellite's orbits. An error that was later corrected by cross-referencing a geostationary satellite. Stanislav Petrov is why you're alive today. So if you ever think the icebreaker is scary,
God,
you never had to do what
perspective.
Petrov or Sliney had to do.
Right.
Which leads us to our icebreaker. Having always considered herself to be skilled in the art of procrastination, it comes as no surprise to our speaker this evening that it's taken her 4 months to get here. Here to deliver her icebreaker entitled, "Who Am I?" while praying she doesn't pass out or throw up from the sheer terror, up here at the lectern, please welcome Kristin Williams.
Who am I? Well, let's start with the basics. My name is Kristin Williams. I am a daughter, a sister, and an aunt to 5 nieces and nephews, all ranging from 5 months to 5 years old. I was born in Winter Park, Florida on a lovely fall day back in September 18th, 1986 at Winter Park Memorial Hospital. I'm the youngest of 3 and was fortunate to be raised by 2 really amazing parents who, by the way, got engaged after 6 weeks and most recently just celebrated their 43rd wedding anniversary. I was also really fortunate to be raised alongside 2 great siblings, my sister Lauren and my brother Ryan. And sure, we had our fights and disagreements along the way like any family does, but I feel like they only serve to make us stronger as a whole. My parents, along with my extended family, migrated down to Florida from Philly and New Jersey in the early 80s, and I've been here ever since. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. So I was 5 years old when I first started doing competitive swimming. And I mean, what 5-year-old do you know that doesn't love swimming in a pool 4 to 5 days a week? If you do me a favor, don't share, because it's going to ruin my storyline. Because I was elated to be swimming in a pool 4 to 5 days a week, and to my surprise, pretty good at it too. My sister and I quickly moved up to the swim ranks and joined a team called the Elites. I was basically slaying the swim world left and right, getting gold medals at every race and having a ball. I was unstoppable. Or was I? It was around the time I was 8 years old that I had my first encounter with this thing called nerves that would forever change the course of my competitive and public speaking career as I knew it. So while my passion for avoiding things that made me nervous definitely shined and served me well, at least in my own mind growing up, I managed to make sure my zealous and tenacious nature shined in a variety of other ways. Take, for example, that time I really wanted a puppy. And side note, I don't even know why I felt the need to have a puppy, because we already had this dog named Sandy who was the size of a puppy and was only a year old. But my parents adamantly dismissed my request, so I couldn't let it go, and I did what any 8, 9-year-old would do, took matters into my own hands. Spare you the details, but let's just say I volunteered a lot over the next few months to walk Sandy, especially when she was in heat. And I eventually got the puppy that I wanted. Fast forward some years later, and I'm a freshman in high school. Life is grand. I'm hanging with the cool kids, going to parties, taking my first sip of alcohol, which was hard to miss, by the way. I'm on top of the world, or at least in my head I was. In reality, I was exerting the least amount of effort necessary to kind of coast by, because socializing and partying is what high school is about, right? Wrong. Needless to say, my parents saw things a little differently and charted my educational course in a very different direction after my freshman year. So imagine going from being a spit in a large hormone-filled ocean known as public school to being only 1 of 20 in your sophomore and eventually graduating class. That reality hit hard my sophomore year, as my parents laid down the hammer and moved me to private school. So my reluctance to embrace this tiny, nerd-filled establishment was high at first, but it grew on me. I went from being the standoffish new girl with poor hair choices to the nerdy butterfly, making honor roll, joining the varsity volleyball team, running for and winning VP spot on student council, and actually setting my sights on college. Made a lot of really great friends too who are still by my side on this journey we call life today, and can't thank my parents enough for the decision they made to force my hand to go to private school. Best decision they ever made for me. After high school, I went to college at the University of North Florida, joined a sorority, was on student government, raised a lot of money for Children's Miracle Network, and eventually got my bachelor's in political science, minoring in criminal justice. Post-college, I continued to put forth my best effort adulting within my career in higher education, and clearly put my political science degree to great use. But who's keeping tabs? As far as goals and ambitions are concerned, I could sit here and say I've got a 5-year plan in place, but that would be a lie. Right now, I'm in this very nice transitional phase where I'm just kind of focusing on being the best version of myself that I can be each day. And a part of that version of who I am today involves conquering my fear of public speaking, which I hope to do with the help of you all in Toastmasters. Mr. Toastmaster.
You survived. Mr. Timer, you give us a minute. The rest of you, please provide your written feedback on the informal evaluation forms, and you can turn the light off too. You can turn the AC back on.
Yeah. Wait.
1 minute.
Our second speaker this evening is actually practicing for the Area 45 contest this coming Sunday, where I will also be there because I'm contest master. Come by and see. We'll be at Cork and Olive on Sunday, leave starting at 1 o'clock. But she is here to prep for her first time taking on the area contest and the humorous speech contest with her speech funny moments. Please welcome Emma Hancock.
I would use this, but who needs it? So I'm gonna walk around it because I can't move it because it's way too heavy. Imagine you're 16 years old, you're a sophomore in high school, and you see this really cute girl. She has a roller backpack, and she's rolling it around the corner. You don't see her after that. But wait. A few months later, you see her again. This time, at basketball giants. Now you all know the story, or at least most of you. You fall backwards. She can't concentrate, because apparently you're the sexiest person alive. For her, anyway. Blah, blah, blah. You expect me to say that she and I, you know, no, not that. Date! That didn't happen. Not for a couple more years, anyway. I guess a 5-year stretch is a long time, eh? But I do have a few stories to tell. Shall we get on with it? A long, long time ago, in a place very, very far away. Oh no, that's not it. Was it in a place very far away, but only a few years ago? Oh yes, I remember. Yes, it was in a place very far, not very far away. Well, my plan anyway. And yes, it was a few years ago. I was living in California at the time. And I do believe this happened multiple times. We fell at the same time. No, wait, no, that wasn't it. I accidentally fell on top of her. You guys know how that is? Accidentally falling on top of the woman of your dreams? At least to your 16, 17-year-old mind. Also, this was one time when I almost got flipped straight on my back. Scary thing is, she's a martial artist. Don't go hugging a black belt from behind. Just a word of caution, because it is scary. Also, everyone thinks that we're married. Are we? No. Are we engaged? No. And the funny part is, it's not because we fight a lot, because that's usually what you expect, right? Oh, we're fighting all the time. You guys act like a married couple. No, we don't fight. That's the thing. We actually always agree with each other. Isn't that hilarious? You just start agreeing with them in everything, pretty much. And then you get called a married couple. It's usually the opposite. So, search me. And when I say fight, I mean the good-natured bickering that happens between couples. Because you don't want to get the missus or the mister or whoever pissed off, right? No, that would be scary. Very, very scary. Because trust me, like whoever you're with gets mad. Bad, bad, bad. Shh. Now this happened very recently. Oh shoot, I forgot my tie. She taught me how to tie a tie. So, the joke goes like this. It's very hot. It's night. What do you expect me to do? Be chunked in this noose for the rest of my life? Nope. Loosen it a little bit. That's better. Next time I'll do better now a little bit. But the only reason why I wouldn't have taken that off, and I will definitely wear a tie next time, because I didn't expect that was going to be for the speech this time, is because, one, I'd get her mad. She'd get really mad at me. Yeesh. And the second, and don't you guys all know this? Especially when you're my age, 19. Have you ever imagined a girl pulling you down by the tie and kissing you? That's what she wants to do to me. Isn't like that the freaking coolest thing? Because then she's like, and I'm like, what? Oh, okay. I got kissed. Okay. Yay. No. Yay! It's funny. And it's great. And I'm about to leave it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Timer, give us another minute and everyone provide your informal feedback for Emma.
It's 5 to 7. Minute.
When things are going great, the normal reaction is to put the gas pedal on cruise control. What happens to you when adversity strikes? Do you go into a gratitude state? Or simply think, woe is me? And why does it always happen to me? Do you become a victim or a victor? Here to explain to us the gift of adversity and why it thrusts greatness upon us, please welcome Jonthan Dunn.
Leonardo da Vinci was one of the true geniuses to ever walk the face of the earth. People know him as an inventor, an architect, but he was probably best known as an artist. He was also quite the sagacious fellow, I hear. Every time an artist sets out to do one of their masterworks, they approach it quite differently. And when Leonardo set out to do the Last Supper, he used a method that he had never used. And that was, he was going to use live models to represent each of the disciples, and lastly, a model to represent Jesus. He was sitting in the cathedral in Milan, and he saw a man, roughly 30 years old, in the choir, he looked totally pure. He had an amazing voice. And Leonardo sat there and said, that man is going to be my Jesus in my painting. And he invited him over. Everybody knew who he was, not some weird stalker. And he painted him. He painted as Jesus. And then over the next year, he found Matthew, he found Peter, he found Thomas, he found them all relatively easy. And it came time for Leonardo to paint the last disciple, Judas of Iscariot. And he searched high, he searched low, and he could never find anyone that he felt like represented what Judas would look like. And he was really looking for someone that had a look of an emotional state on their face, really over what they had done. And he couldn't find him. Leonardo da Vinci was such a perfectionist that he literally walked the streets. Historians have it at somewhere between 7 and 11 years that this painting went undone. Painting that's as famous as paintings go. And one day he was walking the streets and finally he saw a man that looked rough around the edges. He looked haggard. He looked angry. The model looked very unhappy. And Leonardo approached him and he asked him to model for his painting. And the man agreed. Leonardo paid him a sum and he brought him home to his studio. And the model sat there. And Leonardo went about his work, painting as artists do. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, the model starts bawling hysterically. Hysterically. Have you ever bawled hysterically, out of control? That's what his model was doing, and he could not contain himself. And Leonardo was a great guy. And he went over and he put his arm around him. And he said, "Sir, am I doing something that's making you feel uncomfortable? Please tell me, and I will stop right away." The man responded, "Master, don't you recognize me?" And Leonardo said, "No, I'm sorry, I do not recognize you. Should I?" The man who had posed as Judas, we'll use the 11-year later mark, had posed as his Jesus 11 years earlier. This man had been faced with adversity, and like we're all faced with adversity, everyone in this room, he had a decision to make. As Kristin said, she is making decisions that put her in alignment with being the best version of herself. Seeing adversity as a gift. This man hadn't done that. With his freedom, he had chose to do the opposite. When you're faced with adversity, how do you respond? Maybe it will be like the person that I shared the second story. 1960s, Long Island, New York, there was an aspiring musician. His dream was to be a musician and have a rock star girlfriend who would become his wife. He dropped out of high school. That's all he wanted to do. And he traveled back and forth across New York looking for work. But nobody really wanted a dropout of high school musician. And this man was relegated to playing in bars to drunk people. Not his dream. He was so poor that he literally lived in laundromats at night because that was the one safe place to live in New York when you're poor. He wanted people to recognize him on the streets. He wanted to walk into music stores and have his music playing. He wanted people to come up and ask him for his autograph. And that wasn't happening. The one joy in his entire life was his girlfriend. Guess what she wanted? She wanted to be married to a rock star. And after a year of traveling back and forth across New York, living in laundromats, she said, "You are a loser!" And she left him. Pretty good adversity. You're poor, you're living in a laundromat, you have a girlfriend that just dumped you. What would you do? Well, this man took the only thing he could find, a bottle of furniture polish, and he drank it down. And he tried to kill himself. Fortunately for us, he didn't succeed. He got really sick. He got so sick he had no choice but to go to the hospital. And in 60s New York, they knew exactly what he had done, and they stuck him in a mental institution for 90 days. And as he sat in that mental institution with people in straitjackets, 60s mental institutions, probably not something he wanted to see. He came out with a resolve after that adversity to become a champion, and he wrote the song, The Piano Man. That would be Billy Joel. Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, how do you handle adversity? Mr. Toastmaster.
Mr. Timer, you can bring the light off and give us another minute. Provide your feedback to Jonthan on the informal evaluation board.
Hold a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Timer. Can we have the timer's report for our speakers, please?
Kristin, 5 minutes, 10 seconds, she qualifies. Emma, 5 minutes, 58 seconds, she qualifies. And Jonthan, 7 minutes, 21 seconds, he qualifies.
Quick and to the point. Thank you, Mr. Timer. Everyone is qualified, therefore, our vote counter is coming around. Please cast your vote for the best speaker amongst any of the three. And apparently we're getting a soundtrack to go with it.
I was inspired by the story.
Forgot to come out.
I'll come back. I'll come back.
Speaking of having greatness thrust upon you, who would recognize the name Chesley? You should, but that's not the one that you're normally used to hearing.
Just drop it all there. Throw it down there. Thank you, brother.
January 15th, 2009, U.S. Airways Flight 1549 took off from LaGuardia Airport in New York, heading for Charlotte Douglas International Airport. Shortly after takeoff, both engines failed due to bird strikes, hitting both engines at the same time. The pilot was Captain Chesley Sullenberger, and the first officer was Jeffrey Skiles. They initially tried to figure out if they could turn around and get back to LaGuardia, if they could get across the river to New Jersey and the airport there, but then decided that their best bet, with no engines after all, was to glide the plane into the Hudson River. Ditching the plane in the Hudson River, where the nearby boats came by, as the evacuated plane to pick up all the passengers and crew. All 155 survived. Only 2 even had injuries severe enough to stay overnight in the hospital. And you'll see more about that, I'm sure, if you go see the movie that's out now, since Tom Hanks loves to play these people, apparently, who get stuck with greatness thrust upon them in the most craziest of circumstances. Since we had the change in the schedule for our table topics master to recognize, we should have about 10 minutes for table topics. Therefore, we have enough time. If you're ever going to get worried, now's that time. Our table topics master this evening is Jessica Guthrie. She currently serves as the Division D Director for Toastmasters District 84. In her professional life, she is the president of One Compass Consulting. Tonight, she ponders the question of greatness with you. Please help me welcome our table topics master this evening, distinguished Toastmaster Jessica Guthrie.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters.
Good evening.
So I thought it was very interesting, the story Stephen has chosen to share with us this evening. I actually had a very good friend on the flight that went down in the Hudson. He's a super tall guy, he's 6'6", so when you see the plane going down the river, you can see him standing about 6 inches above everybody else. And after that event happened, he lived in Charlotte. I was a coworker of his, and we met at a conference. It was the first time he had flown since then, which was about 3 or 4 weeks later. And I wasn't sure if he would want to talk about it, but he saw me and he pulled me aside and he told me the whole story from beginning to end, which is really amazing. I've got goosebumps even now thinking about it. But I remember one thing that he really stuck with me is when he was sitting near the front of the plane and being a kind of a big guy who was helping people out and going out, and there was one lady who had a small baby. And as they came out, they handed the baby to different people, and at one point he was floating down the river, and it's actually moving really quickly. The current is very quick along the Hudson. They're standing on the wing of the plane, floating really quickly down the river, and while he's holding a newborn in his arms. And he said it was just such a range of emotions being alive, thinking he was about to die, holding this small life. And so that has always stuck with me as one of the really interesting stories that came out of that event. Just felt like I had to share. It had nothing to do with table topics, maybe that's my own table topic, but I thought I'd share that with you just because
You timed it, right?
What interesting. That was my great story. I think everyone's aware of what table topics are, so I'm just going to dive in and we're going to talk about greatness a little bit. I am the greatest. Who said that?
Jonthan?
The greatest. Muhammad Ali.
I like that. Yes.
That was my next.
Muhammad Ali. I am the greatest. Looks like a butterfly, stings like a bee. Who, in your opinion, is the greatest athlete of all time? Toastmaster Roy Whitting.
Greatest athlete of all time. That's a tough one. There's so many great athletes in the world, and I guess it comes down to how you interpret what an athlete is and what's athletic. For example, I never considered golf, being a golfer athletic, for example, until I actually tried to play it as an adult. And golf is extremely difficult to catch on to and learn. I guess I still don't necessarily consider a golfer an athlete today. Back to your question, I'm going to roll with Michael Jordan. I'm going to roll with Michael Jordan just because of his pure competitive spirit and his competitive drive. I've never seen anybody with a killer instinct like that in sports, where they always come through at the end of the game. And he's extremely athletic. I mean, he's a great shooter, great passer, great defender, quick. Basketball's not a contact sport, but still it just requires so many different types of skill sets. And Michael Jordan really accomplished throughout his career, the championships, scoring titles, being able to play both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. I have to go with Michael Jordan. Madam Dale,
In 1981, there was a great TV show called The Greatest American Hero. Does anybody remember that TV show?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was born.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. Yes. It was about a teacher who had greatness thrust upon him. He found the greatest American hero garb, cape and everything, and put it on and had sorts of different powers but didn't even know how they worked or what they were, so he was sort of a nerdy superhero trying to figure it out as he went along. And in fact, there are discussions to remake that on Fox. So hopefully we'll see something, because it was actually a really fun show. Silly but fun. Who is the greatest superhero? Toastmaster Stephen Morgan.
Madam Tabletop Master, I have actually the DVD collection for the whole series for The Greatest American Hero. I have been showing it to my son, part of it, and we need to get through more of it. At one point, I was able to play the theme on the piano when I was at the age when it was on. Yes, I loved the show. It was fun. And I had enjoyed the comic books and the superheroes as well. Choosing one, how do you choose one out of the mix? It actually comes down to many different factors if you're going to play off the comic book part, because the characters vary depending on who's been writing the story, and the artwork varies on who's been drawing them. When I first really got into it was when I was stuck in the hospital with pneumonia for 2.5 weeks. And as part of that, I was getting a little bit bored. My dad brings along a couple comic books, and one of them happened to be The Flash. And I was a bit confused when I saw it, when I was reading through it, because I read reading through that particular one, and somewhere in the middle of it, I see the Reverse Flash pops up in the middle of the story. And although I hadn't really followed comics that much, I had followed them enough to know that that had been who had killed Flash's wife, but who was also supposed to already be dead or gone. And then I realized as I was reading the story, it's like, wait, actually it looks like he's somehow come back. When I actually got to the store, saw some comic books on the rack, I saw an issue that was 2 months later, and on it was a picture of Flash holding Reverse Flash indicating dead, saying, you can't be dead. In that issue, Flash did kill the Reverse Flash. He was about to kill his second wife. That was when the writing engaged me, because it's always about the stories. Regardless of whether the character has great superpowers or none at all, the story is what's going to make the hero. Whether they overcome adversity and what they had to do to get there. And that particular one, that storyline eventually drew on until Flash had to go to trial. And through the help of some of his enemies, ended up being convicted, was going to be put into jail, but they eventually ended the series with him traveling off to the future to eventually die in the Crisis on Infinite Earths a couple months later. And that is a scene where a hero really came through. And they will not expect it.
I thought you might have an opinion on that. And I'd love to borrow that series if I could. Roy, can you grab the light for me, please?
Sorry.
Thank you. Barry, you're our guest. Would you be willing to try a table topic?
Sure.
All right.
All right.
Yeah. All right. IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, says the greatest movie of all time is The Godfather. What's your opinion? What would you say is your favorite movie, or the greatest movie of all time, and why? Barry.
Well, it's very difficult to choose the greatest movie of all time because a lot of movies have their various stories and plots. The funny ones that kind of get you out of your, funk. You have the dramatic movies that kind of get you into tears. You have the scary movies that are just scary. For me, I wouldn't say that I have a great movie of all time, but I will say that one of my favorite movies is 40-Year-Old Virgin. And the reason that movie is funny to me is because the guy who is 40 years old and he goes through life and not being able to I guess, experience what most people have experienced in their lives. And what got me is how he was able to handle some of the peer pressures, from his coworkers and the peer pressures from even outside external forces. But eventually, he wasn't able to go down the route that everybody kept telling him to go. But he eventually found the woman that he loved, and he eventually found the woman that was right for him, despite the fact that he had not experienced what everybody deemed that you should experience by the age of 40. And so by the end, he was able to, live a happy life, I suppose. Better than sunshine, as a movie. So I guess that's a great movie.
Winston Churchill sagaciously said, "The price of greatness is responsibility." Great Britain at the time was considered the greatest country in the world. The sun never set on the British Empire. Today, is the greatest country in the world Great Britain? Is it the U.S.? What do you think? Toastmaster Richard Sapp.
Sorry, it's not Russia. Interesting question, given a lot of the political scene that's going on right now, especially the debate between the national anthem being the center of just about every news piece, whether it's ESPN or CNN. But despite all of that, I absolutely believe that the United States is still the greatest country of all time. The greatest country currently. The freedoms and the rights that we have here are incomparable to the other countries. I say the majority of countries, or a lot of countries that are out there. I don't always agree with everything that's going on in the two-party political system, et cetera, et cetera. But I genuinely believe at the end of the day that the majority of Americans are working to better themselves. Even though we have differences of opinions on quite a lot of things, I genuinely believe that everybody is attempting to better the lives around them. Whether it works out or not, whether we're all in agreement or not, is not the issue. The right that we are given to have those differences is, I think, what still makes America fantastic. Toastmaster. No offense, Sarah.
All right, my last question tonight. So everybody can big sigh of relief, give it a big sigh of relief after I had to call the person. But the song, "The Greatest Love of All," was actually first recorded by George Benson, and then 8 years later was made more famous by a recording by Whitney Houston. And in it, it says that learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all. Do you agree? Toastmaster Susan Morgan.
The greatest love of all, and learning to love yourself is the greatest gift. Yes, I believe that is true. I think sometimes we all struggle with that. I know I do, struggling to love myself and take good care of myself. But I'm lucky because I have someone to take care of me, so I don't always have to take care of myself. I've got a couple people. Anyway, I think the greatest love of all is to be able to love yourself, and I just think that we just really have to work hard at it and do the best we can. This table topics master.
And thus endeth the greatest table topic session of all time.
Yay!
We have a timer's report on table topics, please.
You may. My table topics on MJ, I'm in 7, I qualified. Steven with superheroes, 226, he qualifies. Barry, the 40-year-old virgin, nicely done with take one on your first time here. 216, he qualifies. Richard Sapp with USA, USA, USA. Minute 19, he qualifies. And Susan with the greatest love of all. 46 seconds. That, I believe that does not qualify, right?
No, it doesn't.
You have to admit it. So Susan does not qualify.
All right, thank you. If everyone take a moment to vote for the favorites of those who qualified, table topics. And I will now pass control back to our great Toastmaster Stephen Morgan. Yeah.
Thank you, Jessica. And the vote's coming around. Okay, another name. Who recognizes the name Leon Chalgas?
Liam what?
Leon Chalgas.
I don't.
And you call yourselves Americans. Well, let's see. Leon Chalgas lost his job during the economic panic of 1893.
Oh, that's why.
As a result, he ended up turning to anarchism. On September 6, 1901, Chalgas took the .32 caliber Iver Johnson revolver he had bought just 3 days earlier to the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York. There at the Temple of Music, Chalgas twice shot U.S. President William McKinley as he mingled with the public. One of those bullets grazed him, but the other one went into his abdomen. McKinley seemed to be recovering pretty well over the next couple of days. But then it turned out he went the other way. Gangrene had set in. It had perforated his intestines and his stomach, and was leaking out. Infection set in. And on September 14th, 1901, exactly 115 years ago today, McKinley died. The third American president to be assassinated. With McKinley's death, the vice president suddenly found himself thrust into the presidency. McKinley's vice president had been nominated for the office in order to get him out of the New York's governor office, where he was ruffling feathers. The vice president was so bored, after only 4 months in office, that he had considered just returning to law school to finish his degree. Instead, he became the youngest president ever, and one of the greatest presidents in United States history, Theodore Roosevelt. And my time is now done. Our general evaluator for the evening is planning on thrusting all sorts of greatness on this meeting. Here to introduce our evaluators for this evening, please welcome Richard Sapp.
I wrote that without intention of it coming out like that. I genuinely did not mean that.
You're wearing what you give me.
My role this evening is to not only introduce the evaluators that will be evaluating our sagacious speakers, but will also evaluate the entire meeting as a whole and suggest amendments for improvement afterwards. To get into our evaluations, our first evaluator tonight is so humbled to have the opportunity of evaluating Kristin Williams' first project in her Toastmaster journey. Gail remembers her first evaluation back in 1978, delivered by not only an experienced Toastmaster, but an attorney. That is all she remembers due to the millions of butterflies that were finally released from her body upon finishing her icebreaker. Tonight, Gail Hill-Smith hopes Kristin will at least remember how proud her evaluator is of her taking this first huge step. Welcome, Gail Hill-Smith.
Fellow Toastmasters, guests, and particularly Kristin, I still get goosebumps every time I have an opportunity to evaluate someone's first project, their icebreaker. because it makes me go back to my first speech. And even though I no longer release millions of butterflies, I still have many, many butterflies, despite years and years. Some strong points, some natural abilities I observed with Kristin, and I think you're all going to agree with me here. Well-organized, well-structured speech, a defined opening, strong body, strong conclusion, a sense of humor, use of props, body language, connection with the audience. Every one of us, you made eye contact. That, my dear, is quite an achievement with your first speech. One thing that I would like to note for you, with your natural ability, you got up here and you paused. You didn't speak. And that naturally makes your audience come directly to you. You have everybody's attention. What I'd like to see your next presentation is you have your opening memorized so that you can just bam it out to your audience and make it rock. Tonight you said, "Who am I?" Your head was down. Your voice was fairly low. Rather, "Who am I?" Project with a strong voice and get your audience to think, "Oh, I want to know who she is." Well, fortunately, in your body and the stories that you used, she took us from pre-birth all the way to today. In 4 to 6 minutes in an icebreaker. With that short amount of time and that amount of material, I did detect that your cadence was a bit fast, was a bit rapid. Unlike the use of your strong pause at the beginning, I would have liked to have heard silence every now and then so that we could take in the point that you were trying to tell us, which was about you. Referring to notes, your evaluation asks, I don't know about you, but I was amazed. She is back here and she is just carefully sliding notes from her left to the right. She was well rehearsed. And why did I note that? Because you were looking at us, you were telling us your story, but you casually would glance down to your notes and slide them from right to left. Congratulations. I am so excited that you have taken this first step, and I want to know so much more about you. General Evaluator.
Wonderful. Our next evaluator this evening considers evaluation as a perfect opportunity to enhance the speaker's goals. Please help me welcome Charlie Bombalier.
Sarah.
The other Charlie Bombalier.
You didn't stop me as I'm reading your intro? Let's see, I don't have one for Sarah, so she is
I'll use
apparently not offended by the fact that America is still the greatest of all time. Please welcome Sarah Hunt, evaluating Emma.
Thank you, General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, our guest, and Emma. This speech was vocal variety, and looking in that manual, there are so many, there's a huge list when it comes to all the things to work on when it comes to our vocal variety. There was the pitch we were looking for, the rate, volume, pauses, breathing, the quality. It was a lot to take in. So I'm going to highlight a few because there were plenty of things that you did really good. First, you had stories. So that was the crux of your speech. And they were well done. You were expressive. And I'm going to use an example of where I liked the volume and the pitch that you used. So at the beginning, you had a date. The date was clearly very exciting. That was a big end result. And so you expressed that with your volume, and it stood out. I would like to have seen a few more moments to have that volume raised, but I did find that one to be very expressive. Then there was other examples as you got into the story about, this was when you were being hugged by a cat. So the softness came through. And so you were very cognizant of when to elevate and then make that volume really, really low. There were pauses. That was well done. I find your pace isn't too fast. There were moments, however, that I thought there were a couple of lines in the speech where there was some mumbling. And so you will find, just go back on the video, those parts and look at how you could be more clear when you're speaking. I felt that you used the word imagine, so you're putting us in your world a lot, so that came out several times. So I want to commend you on that. And a couple of areas that I would like to point out that you could improve upon. There was clearly, this was a story about funny moments. And you had them, but there was lots of other emotions. To me, I'm listening to these examples. There was excitement, there was nervousness, unexpectedness. And when you're thinking about those emotions as you're telling stories, they're great opportunities for you then to add the vocal variety in, whether it was to speed up. You even used the shakiness, and there was some trembling. So that was something that I thought there was an opportunity to do. I liked how you fell back. I'm glad you didn't fall back too far, but you got this lecture to use. So again, that was another good example of to be more expressive. And last, this person clearly is very special to you. I would like to know her name. So again, another example as you're putting your talk together, some of the content that you would like to add in. So I was waiting to hear that name, but I didn't. So I, again, recommend that be added. Overall, well done. Thank you for sharing your funnies with us. I know greatness will be thrust upon you in upcoming speeches. Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you to you, Sarah, for jumping in as an evaluator this evening. I know that's never easy to go as unplanned. Now, he considers evaluation as a perfect opportunity to enhance the speaker's goals. Please welcome Charlie Dunn with evaluating Jonthan.
Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and guest bearer, the gift of adversity. Jonthan, a mastery of a speech in taking us through a journey of adversity from way back in history to modern times. You were very sagacious in your story describing how adversity can happen to anyone, anywhere, anytime. It was a well done speech. It affected, I believe, every single person, some type of emotional inspiration, because I think, without exception, no one here is excluded from having adversity at one time or another in their lifetime. Perhaps one thing that may help you, sometimes when you move from one place to the other, you keep talking, and that kind of, in a way that kind of distracts us from what you were saying. You don't always do that, but once in a while you do it. And another time, you seem to, when you pause like this, and you're not pausing, but when you're speaking like this, you seem to linger in that position for a while, where it starts to look a little bit like you're a little bit nervous. You're a little bit stiff on it. When you move around and your arms Your body language is great. You really are good at doing that. Your volume was perfect for this speech. I think you really did a great job with the volume, carrying it through. One observation I have made in watching your speeches lately is that you have mastered the art of eye contact. You pierce through people's eyes until you finish that thought, and they don't dare take their eyes off of you. And that's a great art to have, a great gift. I really like that. I've been practicing doing that because I've seen you do it so many times. It was a very well done speech, very emotional, very inspirational, and I think I would like to see you do that speech again another time, because you're really good at that. Mr. General Evaluator.
We did a timer's report. Mr. Whittick.
KB, 3 minutes, 25 seconds. She qualifies. Gail, Bill Smith. Sarah Hunt, 318, she qualifies. And Charlie Bombardier, 2 minutes, 45 seconds, she qualifies.
And we'll start with go to our Functionaries report, and we hear from our grammarian this evening, Susan Ward.
So the people using the word of the day was Roy, Stephen, John, Jessica, Charlie, Richard. I did say whatever, and that's all I heard. I heard greatness thrust upon us by Stephen. I think that was a really cool phrase. Pure competitor, Roy. And your USA, USA, USA. Kristin, I liked it when you said served me in my own mind. And then also your poor hair choices. I like that phrase. That's cute. Jonthan, a weird stalker. And Jessica bringing in the quote, I am great. Like that. Gail, I like the word cadence. Don't use that real often, and I like that. For my odd counters report, Stephen, I caught 1 double clutch. Kristin, you had 2 ahs and ums. That's it. Emma, I heard 1 R, and 2 bridge words. Jonthan, I didn't hear anything from you, or Roy from you. Barry, you had a few ahs and ums. That's okay. Richard, you had 4 ahs and ums. Gail, you had a bridge word. Sarah, you had 3 ahs or ums. And 1 bridge word. And Charlie, you had 2 ahs and ums and 2 double clutches. And that is my report for this evening.
All right. As far as our meeting evaluation goes for this evening, I got started a few minutes late, even though the word of the day was, which is my responsibility, so I'll do that next time. Word of the day was a little difficult, but I'm happy to see that we have a number of people that seemingly successfully used it. What else? We did not have the buzzer. I know that's something that we talked about in the past. If we could, I know you're doing double duty, Susan, but maybe next time someone wants to just volunteer to hear the ahs and the ums. I greatly appreciate it. I didn't know that I had 4. That was a little bit of alarming. I'm sure I have a few more, but if we can do that again. Greatly appreciate it. It looks like we're going to get out of here on time. I think we've had 2 meetings that run overboard. I think out of respect for not only ourselves, but our guests as well, and maybe expecting to leave at a certain time. Try to keep it to 8:15 if possible. And that is my report. welcome back up to the stage our guest president, Susan Morgan.
So next week is our debate, isn't that correct, next week? All right. So Gail, do you have a minute to tell everyone what we'll be doing next week?
I absolutely do. In fact, I even have a flyer which I will pass out as I update you all. The debate format includes 6 presenters. We have 6 presenters. I do, however, need 6 evaluators. You have an opportunity on the sign-up sheet to do that. So we do need 6 evaluators. I have incorporated and engaged other clubs. We have 1 timer, we need a second, need 2 vote counters. I've contacted the speakers via email. Charlie, you might want to read your email. It's that. So if you can help, anybody know that they can help as evaluator or one of our functionaries? I can take it down if you want. I've opened it up to the division. I have sent information out to all of our area directors, hoping for a good contest and well attended. Okay?
That sounds like fun.
So please promote it.
All
Spread
right,
the word.
and there should be a sheet coming around so everyone could have seen it for the next week. And so if you haven't put your name on the list, then you're getting put in there somewhere. And we'll just let you know.
Point of order, should we do a list of group vote?
Oh, okay. I thought we had already done that, but, okay.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, it's very clear cut there.
Okay.
Some people already did.
Yeah, I mean,
A lot of people do that on their own.
it's
Okay.
undefeated.
Then let's go ahead. I guess we've already done it. So, let's see here. Barry, would you like to tell us what you thought of the meeting tonight and hopefully coming back? We'd love to see you. What did you think of the meeting?
It was a good meeting. It's not my first time at a Toastmaster meeting, so I kind of knew
So you knew what to expect? a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, great speakers. Everyone seemed to be great speakers. Very organized. And yeah.
All right. Well, we were really glad to have you and hope you come back. So, the awards, unless there's any other announcements. Okay, the Tim Chastain Award was originated by CFF co-founder Tim Chastain, and it goes to the person in the president's estimation had done something out of the ordinary for the club in the meeting this evening. And I am going to give this to Jonthan Dunn.
Power of suggestion.
You don't ask, the answer is no.
Our most improved award goes to Kristin. And our best table topics this evening is Stephen. Best Evaluator Award, Gail Hill-Smith.
Saved by that 5 seconds.
And last but not least at all, our best Speaker Award goes to Jonthan. Yes.
Quick announcement.
Sure.
I don't know if it's an announcement. I think I heard in Kristin's speech that she was born September 18th, 1986, which would mean it's your 30th birthday on Sunday. I think we should all sing happy birthday.
Oh, well, no, I think we have the same birthday in here, so.
No kidding, really?
Yes.
All right.
Happy birthday
to you.
No.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kristin.
Thank
Happy birthday to you.
And
Susan, just one quick thing.
Sure.
Which I realized I forgot on this. Everybody, please bring your smartphone because we're going to be use that for electronic voting. I'm going to add that and we'll get that out. Okay?
Sounds like fun.
Sounds 21st century.
All right, and now, if there are no more announcements,